Okay, so what we've done is I pulled the reels apart and stripped them down. I've pressure filled all the drive shaft bearings, and the way I do that is with a piece of Teflon block. I've cut some different size holes in there. We put the bearing in a corresponding hole. Get a regular grease gun, and I've put a rubber nipple on it. So what we'll do is we'll stick the rubber nipple right into the grease gun and slowly press down. And once you see the grease coming out of the side of the bearing, you know that all the air's gone out of that and the bearing has been filled up with grease. So if there's no air and it's full of grease, that means water can't get in. And if water can't get in, neither can rust. So I've done that with all the drive bearings, anything to do with the reels, this one and this one on the Chronarch. Okay, so now the first thing you'll notice with the Chronarch is that the actual cogs are smaller and finer cut, which gives it a nice feeling. It's nice and smooth. With the Tatachula, the gears are quite large and they're really floppy. You can you can feel them move about quite easy. Same thing with the pinion. The pinion on the Tatachula is quite loose and floppy. Even though it's supported by a bearing, it's still quite loose. On the Chronarch, it's quite stiff. Not only that, it's double supported. There's a bearing that fits over the pinion on top of the pinion as well and keeps that in true alignment. The other thing you'll notice is the gears on the Chronarch, which is this one, compared to the Tatachula, are quite a bit finer. They're also taller, so they mesh really well, and that's part of the X-Ship design on the Shimano. Makes for a really smooth reel. Now this reel came, the Tatachula came with a fiber washer on the ratchet gear, and this carbon washer was inside there. Now the first thing I noticed with the carbon washer, and I checked them all, is this one was broken. And if you rub your nail along the side, pieces come off real easy. So that's a crappy washer, and that came in the Tatachula. So what I've done is I cut a slightly larger, well, quite a bit larger Carbon-Tex, but I'm using lots of grease. So what it'll do is it'll make the reel smoother because of the grease, and I won't lose any of the drag because of that. So the larger washer with more grease is actually the same as having a smaller washer with very little grease. I was considering of putting a Shimano washer on it, the D'Artagnan washer. It's nice and smooth. But I think I'll go with this setup for now and see how it lasts. The reason I was thinking about the D'Artagnan washer was because the pressure washer for the Shimano, the Daiwa drag, is a piece of aluminum, thick aluminum. It's quite light. It's quite a bit lighter than the stainless steel part from the Chronarch, but it is aluminum, and aluminum will wear down with Carbon-Tex drags. So for that reason, I put lots of grease on it. The ratchet washer is also aluminum. So because of that, I'm sticking with the stock fiber washer. The drag on the Chronarch, however, was came with stock Carbon-Tex, and by scratching it with my nail, that was a dirty nail. By scratching it with a clean nail, you can see it doesn't flake off quite as much as the washer from Daiwa. This just comes off in chunks. So I'm going to leave the stock washers on the Shimano. The other thing I did was both the Shimano handle, this one, and the Daiwa handle came with bushings in the reel handles. So there's an extra 2 bearings in that handle, along with an extra 2 bearings in the Shimano handle, which will give you 4 bearings on each handle. I am, however, going to swap out the Chronarch handle with the a carbon handle. It's about the same weight, maybe a little bit lighter than the stock Shimano handle, but it is quite a bit larger. It's a 95 centimeter handle compared to, or millimeter, compared to a 95 millimeter or a 90 millimeter stock one. Anyway, I'm going to get them to put back together and see how they perform. Oh, before I go, one thing you should be careful of with the Chronarch too. Because it's such a fine tolerance on the reel, you cannot load up the line right to the edge of the spool on this. There's really no room at all. That any more line and it will drag on the edges of the frame. The Tarantula, however, has got plenty of room, and it's quite a big reel. There's lots of room for it, so I can fill this spool up if I wanted to. Right now there's about 140 yards of line on there. Fill it right up. You could probably get 140 yards or 150 yards on it quite easily. So we'll put these reels back together.